There is one thing that most men after the age of 60 never say out loud, not because they want to hide it, but because they have never had anyone patient enough to truly listen to that truth. What is it? That living alone can sometimes be the most peaceful and free chapter of their entire lives. I have met hundreds of men in their 60s, 70s, and 80s throughout more than 30 years of working as a geriatric doctor. Some were engineers, some were drivers, some were former military officers. Each had a different life. And I have sat beside them in the most human moments, when they signed their discharge papers, when they looked at the photo of the person they loved, when their children grew up and left home, when they returned to a room where there was only one chair, one cup of tea, and themselves. And I realized something. Not everyone who lives alone feels sad. Many, truly many, discover themselves there. There is no more noise, no more responsibilities you have to force yourself to carry, no more roles you were required to play every single day. There is only you and life shaped exactly the way you want it to be. Today, I want to share with you 10 beautiful things that men after 60 discover when they live alone, told through their own stories, stories that I believe, somewhere in them, you may see yourself too. If you are living alone, planning to live alone, or simply want to understand life after 60 on a deeper level, then this video is for you. 1. Peace, the late gift of life. Thomas Reed, 72 years old, former truck driver. Thomas spent nearly 40 years driving across the United States. His life was always surrounded by sound, the engine, the radio, the cargo rattling behind him, the horns at night. But when he retired and lived alone in a small house in Kansas, he told me, "For the first time in my life, I could hear the sound of silence, and I realized how beautiful it is." His mornings had only the sparrows by the roof, a hot cup of coffee, and a stillness so quiet he could hear his own breathing. That peace is not loneliness. It is a reward. 2. The freedom to live at his own rhythm. Henry Alvarez, 68 years old, former chef. Henry cooked for thousands of people in his life, always following the taste of customers, the menu of the owner, the schedule of the restaurant. But when he lived alone, he said it was the first time he could cook for himself. He set his own routine, going to sleep at 1 o'clock in the morning, having breakfast at 10, taking walks only after the sun had set, reading until his eyes grew heavy. No one complained. No one reminded him. No one corrected his habits. For the first time, life followed his rhythm. 3. A long enough pause to look back at an entire life. David Nakamura, 65 years old, mechanical engineer. After retiring, David moved to Tacoma, Washington. He told me, "For 40 years, I only worked. When I lived alone, it was the first time I could hear the voice inside myself, after decades of ignoring it." He began writing in a journal every night, his mistakes, the dreams he once had, the choices that haunted him, the beautiful moments he had never dared to speak about. The quiet became the place where he faced himself and healed. 4. A living space becomes the map of the soul. Samuel Price, 70 years old, watch repairer. After his wife passed away, Samuel lived alone, and he transformed his living room into a clock museum, hundreds of antique clocks he had collected throughout his life. When I visited, he said, "This is the first home in my life that I can arrange exactly the way I want, without compromising with anyone." On the wall, 18th century French clocks. In the cabinet, Swiss pocket watches from 1920. On the table, the clock he was repairing. His living space became a piece of his soul. 5. Mental health heals naturally. Bernard Lewis, 67 years old, former postal worker. In Flagstaff, Arizona, he lived alone among pine trees. Bernard had spent years under pressure, late deliveries, impatient customers, long shifts. But living alone in the small house near the forest, he began taking walks every afternoon, meditating 10 minutes before sleeping, turning off his phone after 8, reducing news and listening to more jazz. After 6 months, he told me, "I thought I was lonely, but it turns out I was healing." Not everyone understands this. Silence can heal things that medicine cannot. 6. Relationships become more beautiful when they are no longer forced. Michael Turner, 71 years old, math teacher. When he lived with his daughter and son-in-law, arguments happened constantly. But after he moved out, something strange happened. They talked more, they argued less. Every visit was filled with respect. The family bond returned to the gentle way it used to be. He said, "We love each other more when we do not have to live under the same roof." It is true. When you are not forced to meet, you begin to cherish every moment together. 7. Independence makes a man strong again. Rob Patel, 69 years old, electrical technician. The day his wife passed away, Rob felt lost. He did not know how to cook. He did not know how to organize the house. He did not even know how to use the washing machine. But he learned, step by step. The first time he fixed the faucet, he texted me, "I did it! I thought at my age I could not learn anything new." He did not just fix the faucet. He repaired his confidence. 8. He learns to appreciate the small joys he once ignored. George Miller, 73 years old, former banker. George spent his whole life handling numbers, reports, financial plans. But when he lived alone, he planted a small garden behind his house. His mornings became watering flowers, trimming leaves, watching the sunlight, drinking tea, listening to the wind. He said, "I worked with money my entire life, but I never knew real happiness could be so inexpensive. A cup of tea, a row of flowers, a peaceful moment." Sometimes that is all we need. 9. Financial independence opens new doors. William Bill Carter, 75 years old, carpenter. After retiring, he sold the big house where he had raised 3 children and moved into a smaller apartment in Boise, Idaho. His expenses were cut in half. The burden disappeared. And with the money he saved, he finally bought the train ticket he had waited 50 years for, a solo trip across the United States on an Amtrak train. He said, "If I were still living with someone, I would never have dared to go." Living alone is not just living, it is also flying. 10. A new chapter, quiet but radiant. Harold Beck, 80 years old, former Marine. Harold had lived through war, divorce, loss, and illness. He lived alone in a wooden cabin in the mountains of Montana. One day, when I visited, he looked out the window and said, "I thought I had reached the final stretch of my life, but it turns out this is the chapter where I finally live for myself." No one pushing him, no one demanding anything from him, no one forcing him to become a version others want. Only him, and a new chapter, quiet but strangely beautiful. My dear friend, if you are still watching at this moment, That tells me one thing. You truly care about living a peaceful and fulfilling life. And I want you to remember this. Living alone is not a final sentence. Sometimes it is the most beautiful chapter you never gave yourself the chance to enter. If today you found a bit of peace, a bit of motivation, or simply the feeling of, so it is not just me, then I am glad this video reached you at the right time. Thank you for spending your precious time here with me. If you would like to continue this journey with more warm and honest stories about life after 60, you can like the video, subscribe to the channel, or leave a small comment below. Nothing is required, but every interaction lets me know that what I share is still reaching someone out there. I will see you in the next video. I wish you a gentle day and a peaceful life. If you enjoy this video, then there's a good chance you will also like this one. Go ahead and watch it now. Thank you.